Good afternoon, Senate Institutions. It's Wednesday, January 21st. We're going to spend some time with BGS on section 2 about their projects. And we'll just introduce people as they come on up. And so, Mr. Asia, welcome. And P. Fair, we always have to say hi to the commissioner because we're honored to have her in the room. We're also happy to have Kate in the room as well. So thank you very much. Mr. Asia, the floor is yours.
Thank you. You want to do intros or?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. As you said, my name is Jennifer Fitch. I am the Commissioner of the Department of Buildings and General Services. Good afternoon, Kate Everly, Director of Communications and Legislative Affairs for BGS.
I'm Joe Aja, the Director for Design and Construction with BGS. I'll share my screen.
So, Mr. Asia, we had a pretty good understanding of the bill yesterday. I think it's probably one of the first days that we actually could grasp it pretty well. And I would encourage you to be very descriptive on anything, especially any changes or any additions or anything where it was, from, not that you aren't. And apologize if we ask you a lot of questions, but we're starting to get our sea legs here and start to feel pretty good about this bill. So don't be afraid to, as I would say, go off on any tangents. Anything you want to talk about any of those projects, we're happy to listen to.
Wonderful. And feel free to ask any questions. First up is our major maintenance, which is an annual appropriation that we request each year. Major maintenance covers large areas of repairs and minor renovations that we do throughout the state and all of our buildings that BGS owns. Major maintenance takes into account fire alarms, small electrical system upgrades, replacement of windows, boilers, carpet, paint. As I said, some minor renovations when we need to, just expand electrical room, account room, and the likes of that. It also does site work, fencing, paving, lawns, and the likes of that, site utilities. Typically, when we look at assigning projects to major maintenance, they have a lifespan. We looked at a lifespan of 20 years. Not everything does. When you look at some of the pumps and other items, it can be shorter lived, but it is the full lifespan of that product or material that we're using that we're looking for, and that's what we're doing with this fund.
So major maintenance is anything that doesn't have a line item, that a separate line item.
That is correct. Anything that is a line item is a completely separate project. However, we have been starting to bundle projects. Our best example that we have is when we're doing door control at our correctional facilities. When we're doing that, the door control system, each pod that we go into is shut down on the incarcerated individuals are moved to a different unit. And so when we do that, we will take some of our major maintenance money and fund projects that are best to do, faster, easier to do when the incarcerated individuals are not in there. That's painting, that's duct cleaning. It can be changing out shower fixtures, those long-term items that we now have a good opportunity to get in there. We've done showers. So a lot of our showers are tile or other materials that have been on concrete walls, and after 10 years or so of being soaked and the likes of that, those have to dry out before we can put a new product on it. So that gives us that opportunity instead of having to shut down while the incarcerated individuals are in there.
Yep, good.
Yeah, just one question, please. Thank you. Did the floods change your major maintenance? Like, did you have buildings that were damaged by floods that are gonna be paid for out of FEMA that changed the schedule?
I don't have an exact list, that I'm sure there are some major maintenance items that are on the list that we were going to do here in the complex that now would be removed from that list, and the money then would be reassigned to something else.
But to further clarify, one of the things that we're seeing, so Irene slowed us down. We dedicated a lot of project managers to the recovery for the water-based office complex, so we were behind in major maintenance. But since that time, we've been catching up and actually expending it at a faster rate than we're actually getting it. And so what you're gonna see is there's more need than funding that we're getting today. and you're gonna see funding levels increase over time. If we don't address deferred maintenance in a regular manner, then the cost to deal with those deferred maintenance items are gonna be more costly over time. So, one of the things I just wanted to let you guys know, because we're really excited about it, is we are putting a workplace integrated management system into place, and Joe is the last, group to go. But what's gonna happen is we do those facility condition assessments every 5 years. Right now, they come in paper format. Nobody's using it, right? In the future, it will all go into the system, along with, we also do energy audits of all of our buildings, and all that information will go into the system. What that's gonna allow us to do is do modeling to say, how much money, where is the deterioration of our buildings based on how much money we're investing, and that will make us much more equipped to ask for the amount of money that we need. And make sure that we're addressing that deferred maintenance in a timely manner, which is the sort of least cost option for maintaining these buildings over time.
When might a project come off a major maintenance and get its own line item? Does that ever happen?
It does. It's typically about costs.
Yeah.
And so right now, we try to limit our major maintenance project spending to a cap of $750,000. That's per project, as opposed to when we bundle. The picture that we have on the screen here is 10 Baldwin Street. And this one, replacement of the roof, we have some chimney work done, we replaced the accessible ramp. We've rebuilt some of the work and painted the entire building. And so when we bundle that, then they come in itself of over $750,000. But when those are separate line deferred maintenance items in our major maintenance list. But if we were to bring this in as a line item, and it wasn't supported by the administration or here in the legislature, then I'm patching the roof for just another year or something like that. So when we have the opportunity, because it also maximizes our dollars to bring a contractor and a general contractor to do these multiple items, instead of doing, bringing in a roofer, bringing in a painter, bringing in another general contractor to be tackling the ramp and the mason. This gets it all bundled. My project manager is allowed to, manage one general contractor and not 5 or 6 different contracts and do all that coordination. This way, it's on the contractor to coordinate his trades coming in. So it works out well that way when we bundle. But a lot of roof projects we have here, and we have line items in there. Once they're over that 750,000, and you'll see that in the $1 million+ range when we get into larger roofs, that's when it's a line item.
The
So
other thing that I'd like to just put a plug in on that one too, is it's all about disruption to the tenants in the building, right?
Yeah.
So we don't like to cause disruption, and we like to minimize it as much as possible. That's why when we go into a building, it makes sense to address all the deferred maintenance items versus ones and twosies. It's more cost effective that way, you're only paying one demob cost versus multiple. Plus, it's the least disruptive option for the tenants, because we're going in once and we're getting out of there.
and major maintenance used on all our facilities that we have. So, it's just not just state office buildings and state house, but we do courthouses, correctional facilities, mental health facilities, labs, public safety facilities. And so then, when it's a wide variety of different types of materials, products, and different types of construction that we work with under major maintenance. And so we have what's called the deferred maintenance list. And Warren Washburn, my program chief, is in charge of major maintenance. And as work orders through that integrated management system that we have, known as WIMS, as they come in there, they're assessed at most of our work orders are coming in from our operations and maintenance staff. Current another program chief from operations and maintenance evaluates those on a weekly, bi-weekly basis. Looks at them and go, is that something that our operations and maintenance staff can handle, or does that have to go to the next level? Or even if it's an emergency. And so we look at that, she looks at that, and then they puts it on what's called the deferred maintenance list. Twice a year, she will take that list of all those items that are sitting there and give the opportunity for district facilities managers in operations and maintenance and develop a priority one list. And all those are projects that we do is we have 6 districts for operations and maintenance, and we try to be thoughtful to divvy out the funds pretty much equal to each district, but each district has, Northeast District has more correctional facilities than anybody else. So that, can be more expensive just because you're working inside of a correctional facility. Here in the complex, your complex related stuff. So we try and balance, but it's really about prioritizing which is a priority. what has to be done. And so she does that twice a year. She's doing that right now. In fact, reached out to the DFMs to prioritize those priority one items. And so when you get to a priority one, there's basically the life safety code issues, something that has failed. And those are the items that are on that list. It's, you know, if it has failed to the point that it's no longer usable, then it may move up to an actual emergency, depending on what it is. But you know, if the entrance to a building has failed, the porch or something like that, you can no longer use it, then we get a crew contractor in there to fix it up because of the emergency. Emergency money still comes out of major maintenance, so when Lauren Washburn, the program chief who does this, puts this together, she reserves some of that money, so we split it January, July. And then also have, she may reserve $500,000 each time and not hand that out just in case. But as we get closer to July, with new money coming in, that easily gets reduced. But certainly this time of year, we wanted to have money on hand, just in case a boiler goes or roof goes or something like that. And also, priority one items are end of life. So basically when a boiler, water heater, something like that is at end of life, it too is on the list. It may not from the perspective of the PFM, because they do a good job at maintaining our equipment in our buildings. And so that we've had boilers, air handling equipment like we have here in the state house that's in the 1970s, still working. Doesn't provide the airflow that we need, but it's still working to keep that maintained, but that's at end of life and some point in time should be replaced. So that can ebb and flow between a priority one and priority two, depends on what comes up. So priority two are, you know, needs attention in the near future. And then we have priority threes that are approaching typical end of life, that they're on the list, they're there just in case. And that's how that list is developed, and as I said, then the DFMs go through and say, you know, these are my top 20. And so if the top 20 meets our limit that, you know, $4.5 million roughly that we're looking to hand out at time, depending on what our line item is that year. You know, that is then what she's handing out for money. Sometimes some districts get the top 30 just because their items are not as expensive. But that's how we work that out.
Yes.
I do have another question. So I'm curious about when you replace something like a boiler. How do you decide what energy source it is? Because there is some interest, and I think there's a bill about encouraging the department to use non-fossil fuel.
So hold on 2 seconds before Joe jumps in specifically to his world. So that bill is an annual bill, comes around, we've dealt with it now 3 years in a row. And we've given lots of testimony, happy to do it again, but the other thing that I would say is to continue this conversation more so about energy efficiency. It'd be really helpful for our energy office to come in and talk about the work that they're doing both at the state level and the municipal level as well. It's also a good opportunity too to help spread the word on the municipal energy resilience program. So we are experts and we lead in this space, and we'd be happy to come in and testify and talk more about that. But in the meantime, I will segue back to Joe to answer your specific question.
It depends. Right now, if the boiler died today, it's the same thing to go back in, because you had that time to do a study.
Right.
All those renovations.
Like a household. If it
Correct.
goes out in the winter,
Right.
bummer.
So
Goes
if
out in
we're
the spring,
looking to, you know, decide right now, goes on the list that we know the boiler's failing, now that they're in their servicing it almost on a, bi-weekly, monthly basis, then that goes on the list, and that gives us an opportunity to go out and do that life cycle cost analysis to see exactly, do we have to stick to fossil fuel, or could we go to some other type of equipment and fuel source? And a lot of times that looking at that is, if you're going to switch to a system like geothermal,
Mhm.
you're coming off of propane and or oil. What you're looking at doing is you don't have the same water temperature. If it's a water system, baseboard or shed steam, geothermal doesn't produce steam. It goes to roughly 130 degrees for water temperature. Most water systems operate at 180 degrees. So you can't get that extra 50 degrees out of your geothermal system, so you would need something else. And then with that, because the radiation that is built onto the wall was designed for that water temperature. So you have to increase that size of the radiation to do that. So a lot of times when you're doing your life cycle cost analysis, switching from a oil propane to geo system doesn't work. When all new, it's very easy to go through the life cycle cost and go, geothermal is a good way to go. And we did that in Essex, at the health facility up there and also the Wilson Public Safety Facility. We are evaluating it right now at White River Courthouse, White River Junction Courthouse, the winter courthouse down there. We're running through that same process. We know we're going through renovation down there. They're on oil right now. Will geo work? If not, they're also looking at air-to-air heat exchanger. And again, they only work to a certain temperature. It depends on where you are in the state. And my mechanical engineer takes out will always be telling me that the standards out there with ASHRAE are looking at it going that Vermont's gotten warmer, that you're not seeing those 20 below 0 days for a week any longer. The Northeast came likes of that. But if you do have a 3-day stint and you can only heat to 50 degrees, that's a problem in our 24/7 facilities. So with Tay, we're talking to his engineers and consultants that are out there, and we're still planning for that.
Okay, so maybe this should be a conversation for another time.
So long and short, it's evaluated at the time to
but
get us there.
I would just like to understand the plan going forward and
Sure.
understand the bill. So let's
Absolutely.
just schedule that for another time.
And
If that's something that the rest of the committee is interested in.
And to help with that too, Mr. Chairman, HCI is planning to take some testimony from BGS as well. And I know you guys like to move in coordination together.
Sure.
They're not seeking any specific testimony on the bill. They just want BGS to come in and educate them about our current program. So.
I've done a slide for that yet. So
Okay. I'll make it relevant to all of us.
And it hasn't been scheduled yet, but we know Chair Evans would like to have us come in at some point and talk about that.
Great.
Better call
okay,
Thank you. So Joe, I'm looking here to try to follow along, but maybe I'm looking in the wrong spot.
no,
FY 25 for major maintenance, I see is 8.5 million. And I see that, but I don't see, where's the deferred?
all right, the deferred is a list of projects.
Okay, that's what.
In that, right, in that, so we have the, if you will, the major maintenance program, and on that, the deferred items, one items you just haven't gotten to.
Okay,
Or it's because our our maintenance staff, it's over their budget item or too extensive for them to get it and replace. Okay, lots of that. So in our funding that we've asked for, and what you see here on your screen is what we have been appropriated and expended and or encumbered over the years. So in 22, we have expended 7.4 million. And let me back up a little bit. And the fact is that, as the commissioner stated, we fell a little bit behind with Irene. The flood a little bit slowed us down a little bit here because we had a few more project managers working on flood recovery here in Montpelier. And so we just didn't get the projects out the door as fast as we wanted to this past summer. However, that said, so we're using up old money that has been legacy out there and we're catching up. So 7.4 million in 22. In 23 appropriations, we were given 7 million. We had expended out of those funds 3.2. We have another, encumbered 3.2 million and expended also 3.2. However, when we look at the dollars that we're looking at, let me get her notes straight. We have actually gone through and spent and monies in 23, the year 23, fiscal year that we've been working, actually 9.5 million. Because of the money that's going out the door, whether it's been obligated, encumbered, or expended. Because what happens with Lauren is what she does is somebody comes in, here's the project, here's my estimate, I need some money. She then says, okay, you get this much money. That's the obligated part. And until the project manager has a contract or purchase order in, then it's not encumbered. So there's those 3 steps. And then the actual expended is ongoing until the project is done. And so what we're looking at there is in 24, she has done 7.2 million to date, and that consists of 110 projects. And so we're spending our old money, we're catching up, and then that's bringing us into this 8.5 that we're going to need. And on the previous slide, we had 190 work orders. And then that's gonna cost 14 million.
Okay, so that's 14 million. Oh, or
That
13.
is what
Yeah.
the operations and maintenance staff today is looking to prioritize.
Okay,
They only get roughly about $4 million. We're gonna be playing with it, listening to priorities. Right off to get us through, and that'll finish out the year. And then when July comes around, Lauren sits down again and reprioritize. During that same time, work orders are still coming in. The facility condition assessment items still come in and say, you know, that boiler is old and it should be on the list. So it goes on the deferred list. It may, only because it's end of life. It doesn't mean it's being replaced this year or next, but it is on that list so that we can plan ahead and keep that planning going and knowing. So next year, I would say we're gonna be asking for more money in major maintenance. They both have some caution.
so can you go to the next slide? So this, are these numbers as of like the last week or something?
Yes, they are.
So FY 23 ended in June 30 of 23, right? Is that right? So it's been 6 months, so you can keep encumbrances that long?
Yes.
I would have thought you would have had to make them go into FY 20.
We spend, so we like to, so this is actually a really good topic. So we always like to spend older dollars first, because we
Right.
know older dollars are on the chopping block for the repo committee, right? So, but think about major maintenance as being like a revolving fund. What I mean by that is maybe it's gonna take we believe it'll take $15,000 to do a project. But at the end, it only actually costs us 10,000. What happens is that those funds that we have encumbered, we've only used a portion of them. They come back in
Right,
to that
yeah,
line
that's what I
item.
would expect.
And so what's happening is that older money in some ways is refreshing itself, because it keeps coming back into that fund. So Lauren is always trying to make sure she's spending the oldest money first, but because it's always revolving, right, all of a sudden. She spent all of her major maintenance for FY 22, but now $500,000 comes back into that, and she now has to then obligate that money because it's the old money. So she's like working magic behind the scenes, and
Right.
pulling whatever funding is the most old funding at the time, knowing that it's a very dynamic process.
Right, I'm just familiar with situations where you can only have something encumbered for so long, especially when you're after its fiscal year. But it looks like we can do it differently.
The capital bill is different, so if
Okay.
you read the statutory language, anything that is 2 years or older, in theory, could be what they call
2 years.
repoed. And then, but what happens is that, and one of the improvements that we made recently. And one of the challenges we were having working with one of our groups not inside of BGS was they were not encumbering the funds in vision. So what was happening was JFO was pulling the report and it looked like we were not expending our
We
dollars.
saw one of those.
Because they
those-
weren't encumbered in the
yeah.
system. We have since worked with our financial partners and we have fixed that problem, so you're now starting to see the encumbrances.
That's
But what
great.
happens is they do a printout, right, and then it shows these line items. And it shows where we have extra dollars on a line, and then what Joe has to do, which is very fun, is he has to go through hundreds of lines. And he has to basically give an update on each one and determine whether or not we need that funding or not, or it can be given up, and he does that. He does it a couple of times a year, he does it in September when they do the capital bill, but again. All of those line items are very dynamic, so then JFO usually pulls the report in either December or January, so he's gotta do that process in September, and then he's gotta do the process again for the legislature, usually around, I wanna say, February timeframe. And it is it's an arduous process, it is very manual, it's not very much fun, it takes a lot of Joe's time.
If you look at section 17, I think
Yeah.
you will see where the
That's what
funds,
back.
we have given back some old funds. Some of it is the bookkeeping behind that sometimes. When you think of like, if we're using major maintenance, I need a design done. That design takes 6 months to a year or more, because that designer is following through the construction process also. So when I do a design contract, easy math is for $50,000. In that could be allowances because of what the design, we don't know, we give them some additional funds for travels, likes of that. At the end of the project, that's where that money comes back in, and it's so hard, if we had some funds might be some 15 in the, it was just, let's get rid of that, and it was 5,000 or something like that, it was easier to give it back and having Lauren and I manage that money. And then it comes back to the bottom line, but that's what we do, so it's not like, we don't want it to stay out there too long, but sometimes it's becoming a little bit too hard to make.
And it's not always repo, I mean, just like what we had last year at the veterans home, we had to kind of kick them in the butt a little bit to
Yes.
get some of that money expended. Because we had, I can't remember what we had on there, 12, 13 million maybe, or whatever it was, and so we prioritized that, and as we found out yesterday, those projects are either well on their way or some of them are completed, so.
Yes, yes.
Yep, so.
Yeah. Anything else on major maintenance?
Nope, on we go.
All right, on to physical security. This is funds that are typically spent through our BGS Safety and Security Office. And it's about card readers, cameras, lockdown panic buttons, security cameras and the likes of that in all of our state buildings. They're not doing, they're maintaining some in some of our correctional facilities right now, but the door control project, which I'll talk about later, is about security inside a correctional facility with cameras, so that's completely different. But this here, the bulk of it is about going through and maintaining those systems, their electronics. Electronics are not great. The fact that, the smart people decided they can make a buck and didn't become obsolete every 10 years or something like that.
Never built it.
Yes, and so it's constant changing and upgrading, and we have found that putting a card reader on a door is a lot better than handing out a key, even though it's more expensive, but if you lose the key, you gotta record everything, and that's where the expense comes in. And so, putting a card reader on, if it's used by a lot of people, it is so much better to do that. And so what we have is, right now, we have not expended or encumbered, should go encumbered first, not expended any money out of 24 yet. It's not for lack of trying, however, our safety and security people do have some projects lined up that are gonna be, camera systems in the Berlin Psychiatric Hospital. We have $40,000 in additional cameras that they could light up there. So they'll be adding that. St. Albans Public Safety is now actually becoming old. And so the systems that they have in there, it's a complete overhaul. We're looking at $75,000 for upgrading of that facility. Waterbury Public Safety is another one. Is an additional work of $60,000. BGS surplus in Waterbury. $40,000, Department of Labor here in Montpelier, $25,000. Door control and card access, specifically, Department of Labor down in Brattleboro, $25,000. Here in Montpelier City Center, another $50,000. So there's plans to use up this money. They have two individuals. It's becoming harder. I know, like here in the Montpelier during the flood, we're now using our general contractors helping out flood. At the same time, they're pulling some wires, and our BGS safety and security people are the ones who are behind the scenes. They do sometimes final connection to the programming of it, and that way they can get more work done.
I would also add, and hopefully you didn't say this already, sorry, I'm trying to multitask over here, got a lot of things going on. That we also went through all the AHS field offices recently. Did you just talk about that?
No.
Okay, AHS field offices recently because they are getting increasing number of threats and the threats are real. We have the threat mitigation program and the Office of State Safety and Security. And so with that, we're taking a fresh look at our field offices and saying, are there other ways to make them even more safe than they are today? And through that process, we will be making safety and security upgrades to those facilities, and they will also be using this line item as well. And that's a priority for us.
Do we make our own card readers or we ship those out?
No, they're manufactured and we just install them.
Cool, on we go.
Onto statewide planning.
Yeah.
Reuse and contingency. So planning is to go through and develop in advance, some studying of a building, for the likes of that, find out where people are moving here and there, something like that, feasibility study on what we should be doing. We're doing that at across the street at 120 State Street. We do have a line item in there for funding, and what we're doing with 120 State Street is replacing the electrical system and the whole new HVAC system because there's steam lines in the outside walls and the floor. That probably comes later, but I won't that one too deep, but that's what it is for, to get out there so you have a better idea. Instead of the old days prior to Commissioner Cole and Commissioner Fitch coming in, and we used to be out of our office that it was, how much we're gonna spend on this project, we throw out a number and hope. And then come back, there's, we're also. Give down, then we pretty close.
Tradition.
Yes, so that hopefully gets us there, we have a better understanding exactly what the scope of the work is, and it is better defined. Reuse is when we come through and we have to move people where it's not the agency or department who wants to, I need bigger space, something like that, we're having to move them and put them in a different space for one reason or another, and we're using the reuse funds to go in and fill up that space for them. Then we have contingency, the commission has $50,000 for statute for any project in the capital bill to add that, use this money for in case a project runs over.
Yep.
If you want to add, because you love planning.
I love planning reuse and contingency, Joe. This really provides us with a lot of flexibility in the program. And so I like to say, my 3 top line items just for normal day-to-day operations is major maintenance, security, this line item. These are sort of the most kind of vital backbone appropriations that we get to support our buildings.
Master plan at Middlesex for design and decommissioning. So what we have here is, this is where the large building on the screen here is the Becerra building, and Print Postal is also with them. The small square building in the center of the screenshot is what was the Middlesex Public Safety Building. They're now at Berlin. And then the bottom of the page is where the trailer units are, that now is going to be covered for juvenile beds. And so when we put this in the capital bill originally, what we were looking at doing is how to best use this site, because at that point in time, both the Middlesex Public Safety Building and the trailers are going to be going away. We have done a test fit for Department of Liquor and Lottery to see what we can maximize, put on that site. It appears that they would fit. But now what we have is we are using the trailers over again, fitted them not just for juveniles. And so that, what do we do now? In the Middlesex building, it's just sitting there, we're heating and air conditioning, because public safety still has their radio room in there. That has to go someplace on the property because that's where it's located right now. So it still has to go someplace else, even though they have relocated. There's also a well that feeds the public safety building, also feeds Becerra. It's in the center of the property. When you redesign it, it's not the best location for it. It also is filtered because that well, I might have it mixed up. One well has a little bit too much arsenic. The other one has a little bit uranium in it. If we combine the two, we'd be all set, but both of them are filtered.
And you're gonna do that at 50 grand less.
Well,
Do you want me to jump in?
sure, go take
Okay,
that.
so this is gonna roll into our testimony that's following this testimony today with the Waterbury Armory. So we'll talk a lot, but during the summer months, we were looking for opportunities for a temporary juvenile facility. And we looked, as a result of that, we looked at the Waterbury Armory. And once we got our eyes on it, we got really excited because there's lots of potential uses for that building. Ultimately, we did not choose, we went to Middlesex instead. But there's a lot of different uses for that building. So anyway, that has come into play. And I know that we'll be talking about it next, but as a result of that, we worked with the administration to try to come up with a funding opportunities. And in doing so, because again, whenever you're running the vision report, it's a stamp in time. It's constantly changing as line items are going up and down or as we're completing projects. So we were able to find some older money that could in theory be reappropriated for the purchase. And knowing that we were gonna have Middlesex trailers, our modular units were not gonna be decommissioned for some period of time, we felt we could reduce this line item by $50,000 to help support finding the money to purchase the armory.
Good.
Excuse me, the Brattleboro courthouse was before this. Did it get done? I can't.
That is in FY 24, not FY 25.
Yeah.
FY 25, we're not asking for money for this.
Right, but did it
It's,
Is it getting done?
yeah,
Is it covered?
it is,
Or just is the project going to happen?
I think exactly where it is.
My
I wanna
recollection
say,
is it's moving
have you
along.
signed the contract for the construction manager? I think you have. But it's in that process. It's been bid out for the construction
Okay,
manager.
great.
Those are the lines, so
Great.
now that the construction manager will be on board, they can finish the whole schedule and how they're gonna work in along that.
Thank
Yes, it is moving.
Thank you.
State House. Here we are for David Sheets Historic Finishes. Yeah. And again, this is an annual appropriation that we're requesting. It's for $50,000. David has a plan. Hopefully in place.
We're helping
Replacing
David with the plan.
Carpet, then the drapes, and I know it's some of the swivels in the house, and I'm not sure about in the chairs in the Senate also. Because to remanufacture some of those parts and pieces. But I know that the carpet that we're looking to replace in the card room, as you're going up there from the stairs into the card room. And the carpets that he's selected are broad room, they're made in England. And so it was delayed shipping getting them here, so we patched that. If you go that way, you'll see those like different color.
Well, I know it's
Yeah.
different.
So, yeah.
It's nice that it's not threatening
I have to
anymore.
tell you,
Right,
so big improvement, but also David Sheets is a busy man and he does lots of things and project management is not his strength area. So he's not spending his money as quickly as I would like to see the money spent. And we have allocated a project manager to work side by side with David. So currently, as we speak, that project manager is sitting David down. And they're going through all of the things that he would like addressed in the State House in priority order. And then we're going to start putting out requests for proposals, because the only time we really can do any work is when you guys aren't here.
Right.
Right, so that means we need to be getting RFPs out now,
Right.
so that we have contractors up and ready to go when we get to June.
Cool, on we go.
State House HVAC air conditioning.
Hmm.
You guys have a new air handler.
Yeah, that's
Running.
good news. I
Yeah.
thought, yeah.
You guys were first,
That's right.
and Senator Mazza said,
Yeah.
we met it.
It's basically complete. Now it's just the rest of the State House. I don't have Kate Southworth here with me today. And he'd be able to rattle off exactly which air handler numbers are which and where, but up next are going to be the ones that are here already at the contractor shop, just waiting to go in. So when you leave in sometime in May, contractor will come back in and start replacing those, and that's going to finish off the west side of the State House. On the first floor and on the second floor will be like the governor's office, Cedar Creek room,
Yep.
that area in there. Well, those are handlers will be taken care of there. The other ones are on order, which will take care of the Senate and House chambers. Take care of all of that. So those are due to be here in September, and the contractor has said if it meets that timeline, that they will have them installed before you come back. So basically, the original part and the addition of the State House could be all on new air handling systems. You're out from that is going to be completely in the house. They too will have their systems in place. Sorry, I got that, my air handlers mixed up. The air handlers in the 2030s and 40s are the ones that will show up in September. Senate chambers, along with the rest of it, are the ones that are here, ready to go. So those will be all done next year. What we won't be doing for the 20s and 30s and 40s is because we won't be able to maximize the airflows in there, because we're restricted on the return air side with the slim duct, the narrow duct that's in one of the walls. After we had our mold issue here, went through and cleaned everything up, found out that the return air fan was not running at 100%. We cranked that up to 100%. But the ductwork was vibrating inside the wall, made too much noise. So we turned it back down. That until we reconstruct the airflow, so we're doing away with the units that are in sidewalls and come in overhead. The plan for the next year, after next. Then that'll take care of getting rid of the wall units and better distribute the air, and they will be able to have more air at that. And then also, there's the last two air handlers, those are 7 and 8. That is a capture rate addition in the message. And that is also the way Tay structured his contract, that, if there's a potential addition going in, when he wrote the contract and everything, he was not sure where that was going to go. So if there was an addition going on top of the existing cafeteria, they would come out of the contract and that contract would then, so. Because that hasn't been finalized yet, the addition, those are either in or out. And we'll know more later this year as to which way they're going to be going.
Cool. Yep.
St. Albans, Northwest State Correctional Facility, the roof replacement project up here. We are out to bid right now, mid-March, I think, or early March, our bids are due in from contractors. And then they'll spend the summer up there, going through and replacing those roofs. We've asked for, in this half of the biennium, an additional $400,000. And a lot of that is just contributed to the labor and material increases that we've seen over time. My project manager said that he has checked with roofers and they have said that that's not a material issue being available this year. So that's a bonus. So once we get in there, because it has been so long, we've stripped the roofs. We also have some unknowns of damage in the protective deck and area of wood deck. So stuff like that has to be replaced. And so that'll $400,000 will also go towards that. St. Johnsbury Northeast Correctional Facility. That is the Caledonia Work Camp also. We're doing the door control project up there. And what we're doing is just following through from what we did in Newport and Springfield. We're finishing up in Springfield relatively soon. Let me get my notes just to make sure I get chewed up by my program chief. The design is out to bid for this facility, and we're also doing at the same time the design at Marble Valley, because Marble Valley is identical. That was actually constructed first, and basically, if you look at the drawings, we erased the name from Marble Valley and put St. Johnsbury down. And they changed them a little bit, but one of them, Marble Valley did air conditioning, St. Johnsbury didn't. But the door control system is roughly the same. And during that time also, we will be spending major maintenance funds in their bundle while they move out of living units. We will move in and take care of that work. So that hopefully design will be complete. Start construction in the fall. That we're looking at if all goes well. Now, again, sometimes when we get in there and we're looking at our major maintenance stuff that we're doing, the design may take a little bit longer. You already know the door control system, the cameras that we're going to use and all that. That's the easy part. The contractor has to go through and evaluate every single door, electronic door, to decide whether or not the door is any good, the lock is any good, the stripes. We do know there are brass locks and stripes up there. They have seen their better days. So a lot has to be done, but each door is documented.
Those doors get manipulated some because of the
Yes, they do.
clientele that you might have there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Some, if you know how to do it, you can really skew a door by taking a book and just sticking it in the door, slam the door, and that just screws the door. And then you locks the lock. And so you gotta do that. And sometimes the door has to be replaced. Some of them, the doors, even though they're heavy steel doors, over time, they do weigh down and wear out. Some of the doors you've had to replace.
Do you, Mr. Chair, do you, keep track of the, maintenance dollars on correctional facilities too, so that if somebody said, can I have 10 years of maintenance?
With our new system is online, will be a lot better. Right now, it's very difficult to try and chase that.
So will you have history when your new system is in, or will you just go forward?
We'll be going forward because of the history that every invoice that's out there would be very difficult. We have to input all that information.
Well, so if someone, I'm just talking about this whole,
I'm gonna help you with these questions, because I think Joe is not explaining this well enough. So Joe, when we do
sorry,
renovation,
Joe.
when we do major repairs or renovations to a building, don't we book that to the asset?
We do book it to the asset, but it's not, having pulled reports out of there, it's not always that clean. But yes, it certainly a line item is easy. But it's not tracked where I can go into a system and go, Northeast State Correctional Facility, how much have I spent over the last year there? It is not, I need to know the asset, and then I'm looking at the dollars that are spent there also.
And also in addition to that, we've been working very closely with the Finance and Management Commissioner, because we're really trying to understand, not only in Joe's world for design and construction, but also in the world of operations and maintenance, right? What is it costing to maintain our facilities? The way that it's currently done today, it's a districting model, and so we can't do it on an individual building level. In the future, with WIMS, we will. And part of that is a little bit of a culture change, because what's been happening is a lot of things are being coded to what's called common ground, even when we don't have areas with lawn, because it's just a really nice, easy catch-all. And when you're doing a districting model of like fee for space, where they break it, where they basically look at all of the costs within that district, right? And then they break it up evenly by square footage, regardless of building type, right? Then we really can't capture what does it cost us to operate and maintain a building on an individual building level. We are going through right now, a culture change, and we are fixing that. And so instead of booking things to common ground, we're actually booking things to individual buildings. But as Joe says, it's gonna take a little while, right? Because now we have to build up the data in the system. But so we're gonna be able to do it both at the design and construction level, but also at the operations and maintenance level, which will be able to answer your question about what is it just costing in general, right? To what I'm gonna say, hold on to this building.
Sure. Right, that is a question. And then just a comment on the books. I understand that has happened, and then in some cases, I think the books have just been removed so that people can't have books. So that's unfortunate. But that's not, I don't think that's you guys.
But every single time we do a project though, all those projects are booked to an asset, so.
No, I mean the books, the physical books. Inmates don't have access to books, or that access was made, taken away somewhat. Because books were being used for the doors, to open the door, so it's just.
I think Joe,
But people need access to books, so we just need to.
I think Joe was just making a statement as far as having the bleeding.
No, I've seen it, I saw it, the bookshelves were taken away, so. So that's just something we should try to figure out a way to have books and have locked doors.
Yeah, and I would say that's a good question for DOC.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
On we go.
Whitewater Junction Courthouse, as sort of mentioned here earlier about that, we were talking about the deed issues and whatnot. We have been under design. We're looking to have a construction manager under contract March 1st of this year and hope to be starting construction May 1st. We're currently looking for swing space. The courts are working with us and that they are looking to do as much as they can from teleworking, but there are still court hearings that they have to have. We're looking at Woodstock. They're going to use their Woodstock County Court down there. And we still need some additional space that we're looking for. All that works out. We hope to have that ready to go. And basically, this renovation that we're looking to do here is mainly, it seems end of life for a lot of mechanical systems. The control system for the mechanical is pneumatic. Air systems have been on their way out, and electronics are the way to go. There actually is, in this case, electronics is better than air. Some cases.
Yeah.
So that, but that is what this is about. At that same time, we have evaluated that course has mentioned to us that the front entrance, they no longer, now that the screening process is so great. With different types of machines that they're processing, bags and lots of that coming through the other individuals, they need more gas. So the front of it is going to be enlarged vestibule for them to do that. The back side, there's also a small little entry. It's more secure going in. But as I said earlier, in this building here, we are looking at geothermal. We have learned from our mistakes at Essex and Williston, and we've just completed drilling 3 wells, 500 feet deep. And they're being grouted today, I think. And they'll sit for a week or 2, and then they'll come in and do a test and find out exactly how well, how many wells we need. We're anticipating to need 25 wells, and that'll go into just in a parking lot out front. If that doesn't work, then we're looking at air to air and or back to oil. And or if it's air to air, we'll need to leave, we're looking to go to propane and even with geothermal to meet that, the real cold days. in large sheet loads.
Need to bring it up because I know we don't have any money, but there's been some pressures to do more to that building. Another $6 million was the estimate to create more space for the state attorneys and all of that stuff. And that is not going anywhere at this point in time.
Mr. Chairman.
Shoot, yeah, that one, sorry.
Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for asking that question. So.
Not really, but.
So. Well, I'm just gonna use my project management hat, right?
Yes.
Because I can't speak for, it's not my place to speak to the programmatic needs of the individual groups. I can just speak from a PM's perspective. So from a PM's perspective, right, well, from a BGS perspective, we always want to meet programmatic needs. That's first and foremost. State's attorney has been in lease space. Our understanding is they've been happy in that lease space. They became aware that the owner may try to sell, and there was actually an article in BT Digger today that they may try to sell those buildings and sort of reconfigure. In our conversations with the landlord, it will actually not encompass the space that they are in today. And even if this were to occur, it would take a long time, you know how long development takes.
Yeah.
And the permitting process, so we don't believe that this is anything that's gonna happen anytime immediately. And even so, the landlord's still on the hook to provide us with space because we have a lease agreement with them, so. That is a way of saying state's attorney is not going to be on the street anytime soon. So that's just currently space. And the other thing I would say is this particular project has been on the books for a very long time. We've got leaky walls, we've got moisture coming into the building, which isn't good. Front vestibule does not flow and function for them in terms of security and access into the building. And the HVAC system needs to be completely overhauled and replaced. It's at end of life. But where I was gonna go with this is this project has actually been on the books even before I came along in 2017. And we have continued to defer this project. So my only concern from a PM perspective and the building and the systems is if we add state's attorney right now, it's gonna double the cost, it's gonna slow down the project, we're gonna have to do some rework. And I am concerned because we're at end of life with these systems and the moisture coming through the brick. So there are, from a maintaining building perspective, some concerns about this change this late in the game. It's not to say that we can't pivot, we can, it just means that things are gonna get kicked out. Our HVAC expenses will be more expensive in a few years from now than they are today. So there's those kinds of considerations. So in the meantime, we are working very actively with state's attorney to try to both again address where they are today and to also have alternative options for them in the event for some reason they are in unforeseen reasons that they are kicked out of the space they're in today, we'll have an alternative for them. We recognize that ultimately, you know, you will all make the decision on whether or not to add that addition on this building, but just know that it will have impact on the current project.
Well, let's just try to get through the next few lines here, because we got more to talk about here. We're bumping up against that time, so.
Sure. Up next is stormwater, 3-acre rule. 8 sites that we are looking at.
8 sites.
With that, very kind of right. One of our sites is where the MTCR is right now. That one was an interest, that was some of the easiest and interesting site of MTCR one way, because we only had 1/10 of an acre, we're over 3 acres. And so we're actually looking to shave off that 1/10 of an acre and have to comply.
Yeah.
But that actually has grown into something a little bit more interesting, and the reason we chose this picture here on the slide is this is the Northwest State Correctional Facility. So the perimeter road, that roughly rounded square that you see, most of that is actually all gravel. But over the years, the gravel has extended to become a little bit wider and wider, so it's like a 1-lane drive. It has become 1.5 to 2 lanes in some areas. And what our design team is looking at is to help to reduce our actual impervious surface is to pave that.
Right.
And that way, our impervious surface, although it's paved, it reduces that footprint. And so our stormwater design and actually implementation of stormwater is reduced over time. So that are just one of the things that we're looking at that are probably the most difficult site that we're looking at is here in Montclair.
Probably the biggest consequential decision made in the state of Vermont that did not have as much thought process as what it should have had. The millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars we're spending on that is something at some point in time we're gonna have to revisit in a big way and bring some reality to it. But that's the chair's about now. But anyways,
At this point in time, I don't have the ultimate final price tag on this. I believe it was around 12 or 15 million. I think when several years ago, we started asking for funding. We have 600,000 in ARPA funds right now. And we have in that line item was wrong, or FY 24. That should be under the ARPA funds. We have expended 865. Encumbered, sorry, 865,000. So we have a little bit, and we've expended only 42,000. So there's a design process, but they are going out there. So here Montclair is the toughest one. We have no location to really put a type of gravel wetland, which is, you know, like another pond out there, or even a dry well to catch that. We are looking at subsurface stuff. The likes of that, I'm not sure if we'll be able to intercept all of our flow, so we don't know yet. So it is still somewhat up in the air, but as our designs are becoming true, this will help us get the smaller ones done, and we're starting and on to bid, and I'm sure we'll be back next year.
Just a quick question.
Sure.
So is this line item to retrofit parcels that don't have the stormwater?
They may have stormwater or they have to be augmented, because some of our stormwater permits, like up in Newport, we actually have a stormwater permit, but it is not for the whole site. It was done when we did the maintenance garage.
Before the
Be-
new regulations went into effect?
Correct. So now
So-
we have to go back.
So for projects that are new, that are just going to do this as part of the project,
That's not.
that won't be on this
No,
line
these
item,
are
right?
existing ones that we have.
So
right
it's,
now.
it's retrofit basically.
Yes, it is. Even,
Okay.
even Waterbury, much work we did after Irene and Waterbury, it still does not comply with the 3 acre rule, because we're a portion
Okay,
of that. site.
thanks.
So,
well, let's get through the next two lines so we don't carry over and then hope and
Yeah.
I don't wanna stop the committee from asking questions.
No, I'm not, that was my last
No,
question.
I'm not saying about that. I'm just saying I wanna be respectful of everybody's time. That's all.
R22, so this is a statewide project that, as time goes on and fluorocarbons, hydrofluorocarbons are bad. They're changing these out, and so R22 is the big one out there. We do have somewhat of a bonus that, like, 108 Cherry Street had a lot of heat pumps in there. We're gonna be selling that building, so that's a bonus. However, just reading the other day, because we just updated our bulletin 3.5, in bulletin 3.5, we were reading through that, pointed out that in 2022, in 10 VSA 586, the line was added in there about the Secretary of Administration, so we put the administrative, in administrative bulletin 3.5, a requirement that the state procurement contract shall not include products that contain hydrofluorocarbons as prohibited in the section. Well, now the EPA has just come out and said R 134, R 410, R 47C are on that list of, as the first of this year, no longer. So some of our older units were upgraded from R22 to the 410. And well, that, you know, as things are changing, you're trying to get off of the old system, those are coming in. So even though we are gaining somewhat here, the flood help us a little bit here too in Montpelier, of R22, some of these other units that we had not gone out and actually tagged and looked at for R22 replacement, we are still having to do that. So this year is going to be spending those funds to replace units before they die, because then we can't recapture the R22. If we capture the R22, we can maintain older systems until we get in there and replace it. Because you can buy it, you just can't make it anymore. And then Northern State Correctional Facility, the boiler replacement, up there we run oil-fired boilers. Those are roughly our off-season boilers and our backup. We try to run that facility off of chunk wood. Our incarcerated individuals actually feed the boilers. They're, I think, roughly 3-foot chunks that they throw in. And that's, they like it. I forget the temperature that they will actually run, but they're operating now under wood and into the warmer days. They're 20+ years old. We're looking at what we can do up there. When we get into that little heating thing that we talk about, we have completed feasibility studies in draft form right now. So what we're looking at doing, if we were to switch to geothermal, just to give you an idea, we'd take 480 wells, 500 foot deep, 25 feet apart. And the slide shows, I was trying to work on the heat thing, will actually show that It's almost not possible to do on that site. The feasibility report is showing that going to wood chips, bolt chips would be the way to go. Our problem with doing that is we don't have a lot of room inside of the secure fence to do that. So if we move it outside, how do the auger system, it's not good to have more and more augers or belts to be transporting your stuff. You want to do it from the bin, one auger into your boiler. So that study's still being evaluated, and that's where we're at on that.
The preference is to be non-fossil fuel at the end of the day.
Yes, wood chips, so what we're doing now is in the past, when we used wood chips, it's like here in Montpelier, when we designed the plant, it was during the main heating system that we'd be running chips, and swing season, we would use oil. Working with Tay Southworth now, what we're doing, we're trying to size our boilers, so we need more boilers. That way, we're hoping that during the summer months, where basically it's hot water, we could still have one chip boiler running, so it's a year-round process, not just in the cold season. So that's what we're looking at going forward.
Fair enough.
Over each time frame.
I think you did well. We were actually put you guys over a little bit, so we apologize, but we did good. So, again, I've encouraged the committee to ask some questions. I don't think we probably even asked as many as what we would have asked yesterday. We got a lot of, good work done yesterday where we understanding what it is, what we have for a bill here, and, so we do appreciate you taking the time to explain deeper and, and having the questions answered. So very helpful for us.
Great.
Committee, we're gonna pivot as long as we're all good.
Yeah.
Okay. I see we have some more guests in the room. Yep. Yep. Sounds good. We good enough to continue on. So yeah, come on in.
This one, you're gonna get a crowd, so.
Yeah, no problem. Let's get some more chairs.
Can I sit in this?
You can sit wherever you want.
Absolutely. Okay.
Wherever you'd like, here's more chairs here. And then there's some behind the door. Yeah, sure. Come on in. Do we have any more? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, let's just.
I can probably stand.
I don't stand again.
We are.
It's 2 hours.
No, that was actually nice.
Maybe one more chair. Was.
Hold on, we'll grab you some more chairs. Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? Sorry, we're running a little bit behind. We apologize for that. That's completely our fault, but I'll be mindful of everybody's time. So I think Linda's gotta grab a chair and make sure everybody's gonna be on there.
You're so popular, it's standing room only.
Yeah, we like that. Yeah. We like that very much. So I think Linda's probably gonna grab a chair, but we might as well continue on. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Next discussion is gonna be about the Waterbury Armory, and just for a little committee history with that, the vice chair and myself actually got to spend a little time earlier on. When we didn't know really how this armory was gonna shake out. BGS had an opportunity to be part of this armory sale. And it got going on a tight time frame. The military needed to sell this building. They actually did very, very well by offering it to the state. They could have sold this building a dozen times before the state's process could have got going. And then the military was under a tight timeline. They had to purchase a piece of land. So they could get a federal earmark for about $30 million to build a new facility up in St. Albans. As we heard on the committee, they scrubbed some monies, BGS being, the administration scrubbed some monies, found the funds, and made it so not to be such a tight timeline. And it looks like we're gonna be able to move forward, accommodate the military, and so we don't hold you up and we get a great building for I think a fair price, and that has great potential, and then the military gets to continue on with what they do. So we appreciate you working with us. We work all of that. We appreciate that very, very much, and I'm gonna let whoever wants to tell us more.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So yes. So just tell us who you are and on we go.
Yes, well, thanks, Chairman. My name is Brigadier General Henry Harder, and I'm the Deputy Adjutant General for the Military Department.
Thank you for coming.
You bet.
Yeah.
Thank you for the invite.
So what would you like to tell us today?
Yeah, I mean, you covered it. You've got, you're well versed with the situation. You know, I'll just kind of piggyback on that a little bit. As you stated, the Waterbury Armory, we were kind of finished with its mission use last spring when the artillery unit was moved out of state. And so that's when the military folks and the military mission part of the Waterbury Armory was sunsetted at that point. Our plans for the facility was to sell it and then reinvest that money back into acquiring land for a new armory project, which is going to be the Northwest Readiness Center. And as you mentioned, it's a big project. When the July floods came, the administration asked if we could hold off on selling it because they thought they could use it as they did for a FEMA intake center. And so it was used for that through the emergency of the summer with the floods and then into October until the FEMA mission was complete for the intake center. So right about mid-October, FEMA was done, and then we approached the administration again and said, hey, we would like to proceed with pursuing to selling the armory. And the administration came back and said, hey, can you give us kind of first right of refusal, if you would, because they had a thought that they might be able to use the facility. And that kind of leads us to where we are today. One of the things that has come up, and as you said, is the earmark season in order to get our paperwork in for the directed military construction for the new armory in right on the border of Swanton and St. Albans. Our timeline for that was such that we need to have purchase the land in Swanton. That has to be complete before we kind of finish the paperwork for the federal earmark. And so that's why our timeline was such that we were really hoping to be able to purchase the property on or about February 15th. That gives us the time to get the paperwork ready to put in for the federal earmark and be a consideration for that. So that's why the timing was such. But that's where we are today. We've had great.
Had we not held you up, it would have been a tight timeline.
Well, no, we appreciate it. We appreciate the support from the legislature and certainly administration. We've worked very well with VGS and DCF in terms of the following uses for the facility.
Yep. Sounds good. Minnie, any questions or anything else that anybody else would like to share about that, the process or anything like that?
I'm happy to share
Yep.
just a little bit, for the record, Sean Brown, Chief Operating Officer for the Agency of Administration. You know, we appreciated the conversation that we had earlier when we were looking at reallocations and using emergency board statutory authority to move the money around to make this work. But, you know, the conversations were helpful with the institutions, committee members that we had it with, and, you know, when we agreed that there was some challenges there, and so we did pivot, and so in the governor's 25 recommended budget, there is a general fund allocation of $890,000 for this project.
Yep.
Recognizing that doesn't meet the time frame for the military's need to enter into that purchase and sales agreement and have the purchase price available to complete the purchase. You know, the military has a special fund for capital construction and renovation and acquisition that has about $190,000 in it now. We are able to spend out of that account pending, you know, receipts to backfill that. And so we're utilizing a process of excess receipts pending the budget passing to backfill those dollars that have been made available for the purchase of that St. Albans property now.
Yep.
There is conversation happening in Senate appropriations about possibly putting that in the BAA.
Yep.
We're involved in those conversations, but we were comfortable that there was overall general agreement that this was something that that everyone supported, and so we felt comfortable, making that spending out of that special fund in anticipation of receipts backfilling that. Also, it does have a dedicated funding source that if they sell any other properties, those dollars go back into that account. Which, you know, and there's other mechanisms too to get, you know, if there's any hiccups along the way.
Well, it sounds like it's, just a lot less contentious, problem solving. It sounds like we've got to an easier solution, and, I don't think that, I think that probably this committee, I know the vice chair sat in with me on one of the meetings, and I think with this committee, I briefed, Senator Collmore as well, and didn't get to the other two senators, but I don't know that we would have had much of a problem as far as to, see that other timeline. And I don't know about the House, seemed to be, there was some, in their due process, there was probably a lot of conversations that still need to happen on our counterparts in the House. But I'm very comfortable, with what I see here. I think that we're gonna get a great building in a great area. It looks like we have some design plans for that as far as to, house some folks in there,
Yeah, so I just wanted to give my little snippet as the
Absolutely,
BPS
please.
commissioner. So we became aware of the Armory over the summer months when we were looking for solutions for temporary housing for justice involved youth. And Dave DiBiase is not here with us today, but he's our deputy commissioner. And as soon as he laid eyes on that facility, he saw all sorts of uses for all the unneeded mets across the state in terms of buildings and storage and things like that. So ultimately, we chose to house them in MTCR instead, but ever since we've seen it, we've come up with multiple different uses for this facility. And those go to temporary residential facilities, could be storage facilities. Our surplus right now is lease space. That space doesn't work for them, so surplus could be there as well. That's a great program municipalities love, by the way. So I always like to promote the surplus program. But my point is that we have so many different potential uses for that facility, and it's a great investment for the state of Vermont, because the thing about infrastructure is, as you well know, it is going to gain value over time. So basically, we're doing that transfer, and we will hold on to that building, use it for different uses, and at some point, if we decide that we'd like to sell it, we will. And then at that point, right, we're gonna make even more money on that investment than we would if we sold it today. So it's a great investment for the state of Vermont. It will help us meet some of those unmet needs. The first proposal is to use it as temporary shelter housing. We're working very closely with military, as well as DCF on some fit up. So we're going through that process right now. We have hired a construction manager. They've gone in and they are currently developing a cost estimate. We would like to make sure that whatever use that we use for that location, right, we're making some investments such as a water suppression system. No matter what we would put in there, we would want one of those. So that's an example of what I mean in terms of investment into that building.
Very good. Committee?
I think this process, the financial process that you've landed on sounds cleaner and just better than what we had talked about. So I think that's good. I think the coordination is good. I don't really know about your facility that you're working on in St. Albans, but I don't need to now. I mean, I'd like to understand it at some point. So I think it had landed in a good place. I do have some concerns about that building as a shelter. I think as the surplus, it sounds perfect because you can see it from the highway and it sounds like that kind of use is really good. I do have concerns of it as a shelter, but I'm not in that. That's not our area of jurisdiction. I just hope that they can get it right, both in terms of the building itself. Does it have windows or windows?
It does have windows, and actually, one of the things that we love about this building so much is that when you walk in, it's basically a big square, if you will,
Right.
imagine it, so it's like an architect's dream. Cause you could do so many different things with that space, and then along the sides, there are some different rooms, there's a kitchen, there's a dining area. And there's some other storage areas and some other office space, so it really lends itself to be a very flexible building that we really could use in so many different ways.
And so I hope the transportation between that building and the rest of the town, it can be improved. Just so that the folks who are there have access to the.
And
Yeah, that
that,
they aren't
that,
trapped.
that DCF is working on right now
Good.
in the planning process.
Good.
I don't know if you could have a better location for, building of so many multiple uses and. Good site, a good site visit as far as to, where it's located, high and dry, and with where about.
Yeah, stormwater's okay, right?
Climate and all that, so. Ready, anything else?
Sounds like a win-win to me.
Anything else that anybody would like to share? Well, we want to thank you for coming in. We really do. I'm pretty proud of the way that this all worked out at the end of the day. It was a win-win. I hope it continues to be flawless moving down the way. Sounds like we got a good plan in place, and just want to thank everybody for all their efforts, and thank you guys for coming in.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your consideration and your help through the process.
Yeah, congratulations on the earmark.